Welcome to Aging Unscripted, a podcast with a different perspective on aging. Here we will explore a wide range of topics aimed at celebrating, supporting, exploring, and honoring the aging journey. I'm Jill Vitale-Awesome, and I am privileged to serve as the president and CEO at Christian Living Communities, a nonprofit senior living and services organization based in Denver, Colorado. In studio with me today is our co-host, Pam Sullivan, and Pam is our Vice President of Communications and Philanthropy. And joining us today as a very special guest is Kelly O'Connor. Kelly is a longevity advocate, a keynote speaker, a proud solo ager, Vice President of Strategic Partnerships and Growth for the Society of Certified Senior Advisors, and editor of the CSA Journal. Kelly's also a very longtime friend of Christian Living Community. She actually used to work at our Claremont Park campus. We worked really closely together. So we're thrilled to have you here today, Kelly. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to see both of you and to be here on the podcast.
Great to be with you. So as I was thinking about our conversation, something came to mind. And that is, I've been in this field for decades now, right? And when I was younger, in my 20s and my 30s and my 40s, none of my friends had any interest in what I do. Right? They're just like, okay, let's move on to another subject. But ever since I got into my mid 40s and into my 50s, people are calling me, friends from all over throughout my life are calling me all the time and reaching out and saying, my parents and I are trying to figure things out. We're stressed out. We're overwhelmed. Can you help us at least understand, right, this landscape? And I love helping my friends, but not everybody out there has somebody that they can call who understands what this world is really all about with senior living and aging services. And that's where people like you, Kelly, come in. And we're so grateful for people like you out there. So let's just jump into this. So you've helped hundreds, probably thousands of families and individuals. And I'm guessing people feel paralyzed by the options, like my friends who reach out to me.
They do, yes,
yeah.
Absolutely.
It's overwhelming even if you're in senior living.
Yeah, that's very true.
It's very true.
It is. It absolutely is. So with people trying to figure out, what do we do next? What do you recommend to people as a first step to move forward?
Really, as a first step is to get an idea of where your parent is or your loved one is. Not everyone's caring for parents. Some are caring for aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, and so forth.
Or trying to make decisions for themselves, right?
Or for the themselves, absolutely. And so it's really to get a good assessment at where you are, what you need, what you're looking for, where your budget is. I mean, there's so many different criteria, but the first thing is really, what are you looking for as far as care and possibilities are concerned for life?
And there's a lot of confusion about that because a lot of people equate senior living to a nursing home.
Yes.
As a nursing home that we visited as kids, like going to go see grandma, is not the current nursing home. So how do you break through preconceived notions of what senior living is? What do people need to understand to kind of shift their thinking about what it is?
So it really helps to be able to understand the difference between independent living, assisted living, memory care, a 55-plus community, which many people call independent living. There's home care that you can have in your private home, and there's also still skilled nursing. And I think the most important thing is really to go visit, to get a sense of the different communities that are out there, what's in your neighborhood, and what options that there are.
And you mentioned, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, that's such a good point because I think sometimes I've heard this from people, I got wowed by the chandelier in the lobby.
Yes.
Right? And it looks so beautiful, but you got to dig deeper. So what do you tell people they should look for?
I tell people that they need to definitely meet the executive director.
Yes.
I think that's so important because the salespeople are wonderful, charming. They're basically there to show you all the bells and whistles of the community. But when you meet the executive director, you find the person that's really in charge, that's running the place. And if it's someone that needs assisted living, I always encourage them to meet the health and wellness director or the director of nursing nursing whoever that person might be. Because the chandeliers, we do get wowed by them, but when it comes to what sort of lifestyle am I going to have, it really is the people that are running it, and then also the community itself, with the other residents. Who do I want to be living, with and amongst? And I think that's really key, is to spend some time and get to know people that are in the community, so you know who your neighbors will be.
That is so true. I was actually chatting with my brother last night. He is in Texas and he's looking for care for his dad. And I said, have you visited? And he said, yes. I said, how did people talk to each other? He said, well, in one community, they didn't talk to each other at all. And I said, that's not a community for you.
Yes.
So really, there's the variables, the chandelier, the care, the ratings, whatever. But you really have to go and feel. So visiting, I can't imagine not visiting.
Yes. And there's so many families that are in a crisis, so you don't have time to visit.
Yeah.
And so that's what I encourage people, even before you need senior living or think you want senior living, go out and meet some people, get to know them. If they're in your neighborhood, they're part of your community already. It doesn't need to be something that we don't go to visit. It should be something that we are incorporating into our daily lives to know the people that are in our neighborhoods.
And I want to just really highlight what you just said, and about making decisions and understanding things before you need something, because then you're in a crisis situation, right? So people can be in the hospital and all of a sudden they have 3 days or a day sometimes to choose, where am I going to go for short-term rehab, or where am I going to go next? And then you're starting from scratch and you're stressed out and you're in a crisis. And what advice do you give people about that?
Well, so many families have not had good discussions about this. So many times the children or whoever it is that are our loved ones that would be supporting us in the middle of a crisis, we've never had a conversation with them about what that is. And I encourage everyone, it's actually April 16th, this National Healthcare Decisions Day.
No, it's an official day.
Every day should be that day. But I encourage people to sit down at least once a year and have a conversation with those people that are in our inner circle with what we want and where we're headed.
Yeah. And for people making a want to decision versus have to, right? Like, I'm choosing to live in community and take advantage of all those benefits. That's so if looking on your own, if, however old you are, even your spouse are alone, as solo agers, right? And understanding what's out there. And there's a lot of wait lists for the good places too.
There are so many wait lists, and I really encourage people to get on the list. You can always say no. If your name comes to the top of the list. You're not required to move in at that exact moment. So I always encourage people to get on the wait list at their preferred location and start to get to know the people at the community ahead of time, so that it's not such a shock when the time comes when you're moving in. You actually have friends and neighbors already in the community.
Yeah, and going to programs. When my parents were looking, they went. They stayed for 24 hours in a couple communities, and that told them a lot, right? Like, This is the kind of place we see ourselves thriving, and this is the kind of place we don't. So really taking that time really matters.
And can we circle back just a little bit? Because you started to talk about understand where you're at. And for independent living, it's pretty easy to figure that out. But as somebody who maybe has no healthcare exposure at all, how do you assess, or who do you go to get an assessment to understand, am I looking at independent living, assisted living, or skilled nursing?
That's such a good question.
Because how if you aren't in the field of any type, that's really hard to decipher.
It is. It's very hard to decipher. And the other thing is the assisted living regulations are very loose in a lot of states. And so you may qualify for assisted living in one community, but another community, you may not qualify for assisted living.
Because they can't meet your needs.
Because they can't meet our needs, absolutely. So it really is community by community. And the health and wellness director at a senior living community would be able to give you a nice assessment. If you wanted an independent assessment, there are nursing care managers, RN care managers. They're usually independent people, or maybe they might be associated with a firm, or an independent care manager, which many times they're called aging life care managers. And there is an Aging Life Care Association.
Wow. So you can just look them up and okay.
Yes, and they're all over the country.
Okay.
And you can look them up. If you live in smaller remote areas, you may need to go to the larger city in order to get your assessment, but it's really possible. Sometimes physicians can give an assessment, but many times the physician themselves have not been to a senior living community, so they don't really understand the differences between independent living, assisted living, and memory care.
Now, another piece of this, now we've talked about the care, how do you get the assessment, but it's the emotional piece.
Yes.
I mean, and the relationship change, especially if you're an adult child or helping your spouse, there's a relationship change when you're like, okay, we need help, we need assistance. Talk to us a little bit about how you help people through the emotional piece of the decision-making process.
Well, it was so funny. I have one client who she had had a long-term care insurance policy for many, many years, like 30 to 40 years. And when it came time for her to move to a senior living community, her family was really resistant to having her move to a community. And I said, she's had a long-term care insurance policy. She's been paying on it for 40 years. She wants to move to assisted living. She was prepared for this in her life. And so it's time to really have those conversations. And I think if you have those pre-conversations years in advance, it is so much easier to have that conversation to say, you know, my spouse, you're not doing as well as you used to be. And, you know, what if we got a separate apartment at a senior living community and for you, and you could get the quality care, and we can return to husband and wife or spouse and spouse to be able to have the kind of relationship that we want to have. And you get the support that you need with the dignity that you deserve. And it's hard to have those conversations, but sometimes in life we have to have hard conversations.
We do.
And the stat that really gets me sometimes when we're in this phase is how the caregiver sometimes passes before the person they're caring for because they're so worn out from doing all the care.
Yeah, I have a client right now that has breast cancer who's been taking care of her father who passed away and now her mother who needs additional help. And it's a matter of we need to reduce our stress as caregivers, and we need to make sure that we're seeing our doctors on a regular basis to catch these things early.
Yeah. And I've had family members say that now I can be a daughter again.
Yes.
Right. And like you said, getting that or now I can be a wife or a husband again because I've got the support I need.
Yes.
To make sure that the other person, my loved one, has the care they need.
Yes.
So
And not everyone's designed to be a caregiver. You know, a caregiver has a very special heart. And to be able to care for someone in the way that they deserve to be cared for, it really does take a special person. And some people just aren't built that way. And so providing care at home is not always the way that people, you know, can live comfortably, both parties, the care partner and the care recipient.
So how do you get over the guilt of not coming to the realization, I'm not built for this? How do you help people get to the point where they realize really getting care is okay?
It is such a hard discussion, and it really depends on the family and to be able to get to know them intimately. So I was a private elder care consultant for many years and helped people make those decisions. And in doing that, it's really sitting down and saying, if you're not built for this, let's have the discussion and let me gently help you with that discussion to be able to break down some of the barriers that might stand in the way.
And helping family members come to, because sometimes it might be the parents or one of the spouses that doesn't want to do that, right? The whole "I'm not ready" situation. Sometimes the kids are for it, and sometimes they're not. And so it's so complex. It really is. And I think having help with that is really good for families.
Yes. Having a third party to be able to ask those questions. You know, sometimes, you know, I'll be able to say to, let's say it is an older adult who the adult children are caring for. and to be able to say, so what sort of care do you need? And the older adult will say, I don't need any care at all. And it's like, okay, so are you receiving any care now? And they will say, no, I'm not. And then I ask the adult child to say, okay, so what care are you providing for your loved one, for your mom or your dad? And they'll say, oh, well, I come over here and here's what I do. And I bring meals 3 times a week and I help them with their medication and ordering. And so many times it's the older adult who does not see the care that's being provided. And so sometimes you have to have those conversations, and I've had to delicately do so. And to be able to say to the adult child, how many hours are you spending caring for your loved one? And they'll say 10 to 20 hours a week.
Wow.
And the older adult is completely blown away because they don't think that they have any care. They just see that their daughter's helping them with things.
Yeah.
And they don't know that those services are provided in a senior living community where they can be fully supported and independent with the care of the community and let the daughter, as you said, return to the daughter position.
And even thinking about if somebody's moving into independent living, I might not need anything right now, but I want to make my decisions about where I'm going to be and know there's a safety net there and know that I'm going to be around people that are going to become my family, really, and friends, and we're going to look out for each other. And that's another kind of, it's a little freeing for people is what I hear from people when they
Yes.
make that decision to do that.
Well, you mentioned that I'm a solo ager, which for me means that I'm uncoupled without children. So I will definitely need support in my later life. I know that already. And so being able to be in a senior living community for me is exactly where I want to be, because I want to be surrounded around people and build relationships and know the care partners when I will need that care, that I am already familiar with who they are and they're familiar with me, so that we can move to that next stage really gracefully.
Absolutely. I love that.
And you mentioned having the third person really helps. We've talked about how you choose senior living communities, but how do you pick the person to help you? I mean, you've mentioned a couple different names of people who can help, but it's kind of that in itself.
Yeah, that's a big
can be overwhelming and confusing. How do you decipher through that? And somebody that really cares about you and isn't just looking for the paycheck.
Yes, such a great question. So there are many people that are able to provide, as I said, the assessments. The Aging Life Care Association is a great one. ALCA is a great organization. I work for the Society of Certified Senior Advisors. And if there's a care manager that's also a certified senior advisor, you know that they've been background checked, they've been vetted, they've passed an ethics module, they've signed agreements of professional responsibility. Like, there are organizations out there that have truly vetted people ahead of time for you.
Yeah, we have one of our chaplains in one of our communities recently went through the certification process, the certified senior advisor process, and she was like, I cannot believe how hard that was, how much work it was, how much study it was. And I was like, I'm so glad to hear that.
Yes.
Right? Because it should be hard. And people need somebody that they know has been vetted and that they can trust.
Yes.
Knows what they're doing, is background checked. And so I was thrilled to hear how hard it is.
Great. No, it's a rigorous exam.
Yeah.
And the coursework is quite substantial. And what it is everyone has their primary profession. So they could be an elder law attorney, a real estate agent, a financial advisor, a home care executive, even a direct care worker. We have all of those people that can become certified senior advisors. And so you know that they've taken that extra step in their education where they really are committed to serving older adults with excellence.
And then there's, I think there's also, just so people understand that kind of the landscape, there's also big national companies that you can go to and it's free.
Yes.
Right? And, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but people need to understand what the difference is in those situations. Will you talk about that?
I will. So there is an emerging profession. It's been coming around for about 15, 20 years called senior living placement agent. And so the senior living placement agents, They are contracted with certain communities in their neighborhoods, and they can help you find those senior livings. Depending on their other backgrounds, they may be able to do a really thorough intake. If it's a nurse owner of a senior living placement agency, they may be able to do a clinical assessment for you. But their services are oftentimes free to the families. And I always make sure that I say free to the families because the senior living placement agents are being compensated by the communities that they're contracted with. So they do receive compensation. It's not a free resource like we call them AAAs, the Area Agency on Aging.
Yeah.
And so it's not a government agency, but they do provide a program that's free to the families, but they are being compensated. The one thing that I always caution people with senior living placement agencies is they are only compensated by the care communities that they're contracted with. So if they don't have a contract with a certain community, they won't be showing you them.
You won't even hear about it.
You won't hear about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's really important to do your research. There's also some, I call them sort of clearinghouses that are national agencies that also operate the same way. And many times you're signing a 2-year contract with them because you don't read the fine writing where they own your name and then they send it to the care communities. And then all of a sudden you have 15 to 20 communities bombarding your phone, calling you, trying to get you to set up appointments and tours of the communities, but they operate the same way. They only send you the names of places that are in your area, not places that you're actually qualified for.
Right.
And I think another thing to mention, because it is confusing, is that we have a lot of veterans.
Okay.
And so people could use that veteran benefit. It's a great benefit.
The VA aid and attendance.
VA aid and attendance pension. But it's somewhat similar in that not every community has a contract with the VA.
Correct.
And so you have to really,
Well, with that, I think you can get it on your own and use it at communities.
You can.
Okay.
And you can be compensated individually after you pay.
Well, now you pay the community. So it's a little different than the VA contracted communities, but there's VA aid and attendance. Anybody
All
can.
these things are what you need to know ahead of. And you have to start in advance.
No, exactly. And I want to go back to what you said about the placement agencies. We know a lot of local folks,
Yes.
and they do great work,
Yeah.
right? And I know people that even if they're not contracted with one of our communities, because in our communities where we're full, we don't do those contracts, but they will still refer people because they know it's the right thing for them.
Yes.
Right? So this isn't to say all placement organizations are bad. There's a lot of really great local ones, but people really do need to be aware that you are only getting the places that are contracted, especially with these big national companies.
Yes. And it's really important to ask the questions to make sure that you have all the information that you need when you're hiring a care provider. And I always say, look at their qualifications just because you like them. We have a lot of nice people in our industry. Just because you like them does not mean that they're qualified. And experience really does matter when it comes to making these really big decisions.
Yeah. And being kind and somebody you can trust is also really important, right? So
Absolutely.
it's all those things together.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Will you talk a little bit, we've talked a lot about why local matters with finding someone as certified senior advisor or a person who's going to help you identify things. Talk a little bit more about why local matters, if you would.
I love local care communities, and because the owners and the directors live in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
I think that's so important. There's a lot of big organizations that are out there that are publicly traded, and many people, for them, that is the right decision. But I love the local communities. I'm a shake your hand kind of person. So I want to be able to shake the hands of the people that I know are caring for me and providing what it is that I need in my later life. That's what I'm looking for. There's many people that love the security of being able to go with a big company.
Absolutely.
It's a brand that they've heard of for many years. I know that both of my grandmothers lived at a big corporate community, and they provided really great care for my grandmothers. But the thing is just because there's someone that has a reputation, say my grandmothers were in Florida, just because they have a good reputation in Florida doesn't mean that the reputation is good in your state. You really have to know these communities and know the leaders in order to really make a good decision for yourself.
That goes back to what you said about ask to meet the executive director of the community.
Yes.
Right? And I go to our Denver metro area communities once a month. More than that, but once a month I go with no agenda and I hang out by the fireplace, and it's open to anybody who wants to come talk to me. And I say, you can come yell at me, you can come tell me an idea, like you can ask questions. And I can't tell you how many residents and family members are like, what do you mean I can just come talk and ask you questions? So I think you're right. Like being able to, and I do have people reach out. I get emails all the time.
Yes.
And it matters. Right? This is a people business in a people field that we're in. And so knowing the people, where does the buck stop? And being able to know those people matters.
Yes. Well, one thing I appreciate about Christian living communities is you believe in resident citizenship, and that the citizens of the community are the ones that have the ideas that they can bring forth to the community, and that they're integrated into their life. They're the ones that know what they want most. And many other organizations are top down. It's what the shareholders want. It's what the corporate team thinks is best, but really having a community where the residents have a say-so, that's also, I think, something's really important.
More than a say-so.
More than a say-so, yeah. And team members, too. We really believe that residents and team members collaboratively build that that culture. We want to make sure everybody has a home and feels very comfortable and belongs where they live and work. So I think it's really important.
People working together.
And that's why, how people talk to each other when you visit a community is really important. How do the team members talk to each other?
People smiling and making eye contact.
Yeah,
that matters.
All those basic things really do matter and are a great little natural measurement, if you will, of what would be good for you and your loved one. Yeah.
So, Callie, if there's somebody out there listening and they are like, okay, you're talking to me because I'm in this situation. We're just trying to figure out, maybe it's an older adult themselves trying to figure out next steps, or a family member. We talked about a lot of different solutions. Where do they go? Should they go to the CSA website to find somebody who's certified? Give some advice, if you would.
So I think in really trying to understand, if you know someone who's living at a current community and really successful there, go and talk to the sales and marketing director at the community. If you're looking for someone that will take you, like a realtor, will take you around town and show you different communities, you could go with a senior living placement agent. I always encourage people, that certified senior advisor. Obviously, I've been a certified senior advisor for many years, but I'm very loyal to the company. But I encourage people, if they're a senior living placement agent, that they're also a certified senior advisor. Gives you that extra assurance that they know what they're doing and can help direct you and show you different communities.
So if somebody's like, I don't even know where to start, that could be a good place to start.
Yes.
Okay.
With a local senior living placement agent would be a really great place to start.
Okay. And so we'll put some
some
links
things in the podcast notes. And I think, start looking at the websites, then have the conversations. The sphere of options is huge.
Yes.
So really, start looking at that. I also say go look at the Facebook page.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Because what they put on social media, some people just put, stock photos on, or they show what community life's really like. So, those are things that I'm saying these because I've been the adult child in another state, right? And so you're like, okay, how can I do this right now when I can't walk in the door? That helps you narrow the field a little bit. Have a conversation with a professional. There's just so many things.
And there's nothing wrong with visiting a community 10 times, 15 times. You have to make the decision that's right for you. And every community isn't the right fit for everybody, right? In terms of personality and Is this the kind of place where I'm going to thrive?
Yes.
So I would say to people, don't ever feel bad. Like, I'm going to go back multiple times. Don't get pressured. Don't get pressured, right?
At
lunch.
At lunch.
And I do caution people to be careful where they're putting their name and their email address, because many times it's not the community that you think it is, it's a marketing company.
When you're online
When
doing
you're
this kind of
online,
thing,
yes, make sure very carefully that you are actually contacting the community directly and not one of the online marketing companies.
That's a good point, because you might Google a community. Well, I search it online and it comes up, and it's because they've paid to have their ads up. It's one of those other agencies, and they're getting your information.
Exactly.
That's a really good point.
Very good point.
That's a really good point. So, what last words of advice would you give to people out there listening?
I've said plan ahead, have conversations ahead, but the other piece is really to take your time and to really make sure that you're getting to know the community before you move in, getting to know the people that are there at the community, and really building those relationships. I can't encourage people more than planning ahead and working ahead. And everyone asked me, well, what does ahead mean? I had someone recently who was 85 who didn't even have a power of attorney in place. And it's like, well, at 85, it's time to have a power of attorney in place. Everyone over 18 should have a power of attorney document in place. But at whatever age you think that it's time to start looking for you. Everyone is different. It could be someone at 65. It could be someone at 75 or 85. Whenever it's time, I say 2 to 3 years in advance is a good time to really start having these conversations, whatever you think that advance time is.
Thank you, Kelly. It's a huge decision.
It is.
And you planning ahead makes a lot of sense.
That's a lot of great advice.
Yeah,
Really
thank
appreciate
you.
that.
Thank you so
Thanks for
much.
having me today.
I know we'll put your website on there. You're going to have a bunch of people reaching out to you. Okay. Well, thank you again, Kelly. We really appreciate you being here. Thank you, Pam. And we really appreciate all of our listeners and viewers joining us today for Aging Unscripted. A reminder that aging is indeed unscripted.
It is.
And we ask you, please subscribe to our podcast on your favorite streaming channel and share it with other people who you think might benefit from some of this information. Every one of us has a journey that is as individual as we are. And not everyone receives that gift of aging. We believe it is a sacred phase of life that should be honored and celebrated. Thank you. Thank you.